The key work of a data analyst or business intelligence analyst is how do you extract insights and business intelligence from data. For instance, you have this data set here, you have names of people, names of workers, you have the projects they're working on, you have the project hours spent, you have the dates up here. But this is an example of a messy data set. To start off with, it's not a proper table, because for a proper table, you have all the columns with similar data and similar data types. You have a lot of things going on here, color and fonts and missing values. You have your merged data up here. So it's quite messy, and sometimes this is done deliberately. If this was part of an interview, task that you had to do, this will be done deliberately to kind of make it look a bit messy and confusing. So the first step is you would like to convert it to a proper table, and a proper table looks like this. So this is a proper table. You have a single line of headers, you have similar data types in each column, and from here you can do your pivot tables, you can do your graphs. So this is a proper table. This you can analyze in Excel. So whenever you have a data set, you always are trying to answer a key business question or a few key business questions. For instance, here, it could be you want to answer this question: when are people becoming available to take on new project work? So these people with these hours spent, at what times are they going to become available to handle more? So let's start by fixing the dates in this row. The first thing is unmerge them. We want to put dates in each column. To do that, I'm just going to use a macro that I've written earlier. You can check out this video. It shows you how to do this. So all I need to do is select the first cell, go on to my developer tab, and pick the macro that I would like to use. The macro that you see in this video is fill right, and then run it. So what that does is it puts dates in each column. Let's just check the end of the data. This is a good practice, so you want to check what's going on right up to the end. Next, it's important that we just have one header per row. And in this case, because we've got two, so we need to create a new header row. So I'm going to do this by joining these two cells. So it's going to be this, and then let's join it with a hyphen and this. So because we've converted the data to text, it comes out as a number, so which is fine. And then we can drag this all the way down, and that's our new header. But as you can see, it still depends on these two values. So what we want to do is to copy, just click out of it, and then come back into it, and then values. So that way now this is static, it doesn't depend on this, and we can remove these two rows. Later on, we're going to have to convert these numbers back into dates. So what we need to do at this point is to copy all these dates out, go to a new sheet, and then paste them, or use paste transpose. There we are. Then create another copy of this and then paste it here. So these will format as text to get the numbers, and this will leave as dates. So we can write here number, and then this is date. And then we can get rid of the color. Okay, that's fine. The other thing is, because we have duplicates here, we should deduplicate, so we should remove the duplicate. So just select the whole table and go on to data, go on to remove duplicates, and yes, we have headers, and we just say OK. And that's it. Alright, same tool cleaned up a bit, color removed. So now we want to take into Power Query. So data, get data from table range. And here it is. So that's our table 1. Ignore these are my previous queries. So the first thing we need to do is to unpivot these columns. We want all these columns to be just in 2 columns. So transform, unpivot columns, and unpivot other columns apart from the one we've selected. So it comes like this. Now the next step is we'd like to split this into a date bit and the client bit. So date and client and hours spent. So you want to, under transform, split by delimiter, and our delimiter is a dash. Now we have 2 parts. So the next step will be to convert these numbers back into a date, and before we do that, we want to exit, close and load 2. We don't want to load it into our workbook. We just want to create a connection for now, and that is fine. OK. And here it is, table 1, connection only. So it's not showing, but it's there. The next thing we need to do is to convert those numbers back into dates. So we need to get this data from table range, yes, and we need to bring it into Power Query, and it comes in as table 5. So to make it easier to understand, we are going to rename this as date. Let's just leave it as date, or yeah, date. Okay, so we need to join this to this. So all we have to do is come here, do merge queries. We want to merge it into the existing query. Oh, by the way, tables are queries, so all these are queries. And then we want to say merge queries. And it's saying what do we want to merge on? We want to merge on here. What do we want to merge to? We want to merge to here. Okay, when we expand, we don't need the number, we just need the date. And the date comes out as this. We don't want it as date and time, so we can change this to date. Good. And we can change the name. So rename as just date. Now we have date. We do not need this column, so we can delete. And we can bring the date in here. Good. So we have name, date, attribute, and value. The only problem here is that the client name and the hours spent are in the same column. And remember what we said about proper tables, we would like them to be in different columns. So that's what we're going to do next. So in order to do this, we will need to duplicate this table. So we come here, we do duplicate, and now we have 2 tables. So the first one we are going to rename as client. And the second one we can rename as project hours. Okay, let's start working on client. So here we want to filter down to the client. So all these are the clients now. Now remember, in Power Query all our steps are being recorded, so that's one aspect of Power Query that's very useful. Now we have all the clients here. We don't actually need this column, so we can come here and rename this as NHS and delete this. Or we could have called it client, same thing. So that's fine. In order to join this back into the other table, we will need an index column. So I'm going to add column. I'm going to add an index column to start from 1. Okay. Now we need to make sure that our data types are correct. So name, date, this is a text, and this is a whole number. That's fine. So now we come to project hours. We do the same thing. So here we want to filter down to project hours spent. We don't need this column, so we can rename this as and delete this. Data types, name, date. This is going to be a whole number. And we need to add an index column. So index column, nope, that was a mistake. So all we need to do is we can delete that step. We need to add an index column starting from 1. That's fine. So all our data types are correct. So we have client, we have project hours, and we can join them on the index column. So how do we do that? So let's start a new query. So merge queries as new. At this point, we need to do a quick check. So if we go onto client, we have 168 rows, 4 columns. But when we go onto project, we have 145 rows. So we can't join them together. We should have the same number of rows as it was in the original table. So same number of rows, it should be 168 here and 168 here. So what has gone wrong? Now, in Power Query, we can backtrack our steps. So if we look here, we have 21 rows. 21 rows. When we unpivoted it, we have 3, 1, 3. But you can see something here. There's something going on here. Now, you have client, project hours, client, project hours. Here, you just have client, 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 no project hours. What has gone wrong? It's because of all these nulls. So where Power Query has seen a null, it just skips the row for project hours spent. What we should have done is to replace all these nulls with 0. Control A to select everything, and then want to go into transform, replace values. So what are we replacing? Replace values? Yes. So we want to replace our nulls with 0. Wherever you see a null, put a 0 in it. Okay. And when you do that, you have all the zeros in place. Now, if you go to the end, so as you can see, we have all our zeros put back in, and we have 168 rows. Fine. So what we want to do now is merge these two queries. I want to merge them as new. So start with client. Want to merge these two queries as new. And we have client query, merge on the index column, and project hours, merge on the index column. And you can see it matches 168 with 168. Good. Now we have our new table. It's called merge. I'm just going to say this is our proper, let's give it a fancy name now, a proper table. Good. And this is our client query, and this is our project hours query, which we need to expand. And as you can see, most of the columns are duplicated. So most of the columns we have in the client query are in the project hours query. So all we actually need from this query is the project hours spent. We don't need this, and then so that's it. So we have our project hours spent. We no longer need the index column, so we can delete the index column, and we just do a check. So name, date, NHS Foundation client, and then project hours spent, and all the data types are correct, and we have 168 rows. So we can now close and load. This time we want to close and load 2. So we want to close, we can either close and load or close and load 2, but we want to pick table. So we want to actually put it in our workbook, and that's okay. And that this is our proper table. So let's get rid of the green color. Come here. So as you can see, we have our name, we have our date, we have the trust, and then we have the project hours spent. Fantastic. Now, from here we can do our pivot tables. So we go on to our table design, summarize with the pivot table. New worksheet, yes. And we want to summarize by NHS Foundation Trust, maybe the name, and the project hours spent. We can do this better as a tabular view. Okay, so this is the amount of time spent for each client. We could also do the amount of time spent for each person. We can even bring in the date in here to know that for each of these people, these are the hours they're spending for each client per week. And this is the total hours spent per week. This is the same table, tidied up, using conditional formatting to create a heat map. So we can see areas of high availability and low availability. So where the hours worked is low, it colors it in red, and where the hours worked is high, it colors it in green. And you have the shades in between. So you can see Carly Bennett in this week. You can see, you can get an idea of the availability. You could even remove the client and just have a total figure. So just showing totals, you can see Maria has the highest availability to take on new project work, and Lauren is not available, will probably not be available in the first week, has some availability in between, and yeah, you can use this as a tool. So we've come from here with this business question, and we've ended up here, which answers the business question. So I hope you found this video helpful. If you have, please like and subscribe. I will continue to produce other videos, tips and tricks that I come across in my job as a data analyst. Thank you very much, and take care. Bye.